Hello there and welcome back to the Cozy Club, my friends. We've got yet another video for you today, and today's video is going to be all about the factions within the game. We're going to have a complete overview talking about the biggest factions in the game and where they rank as a whole. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And we're going to kind of tier them all together. I think this is a great way that we can really catch everybody up on the state of each and every faction as a whole. Talk about what characters within those factions are good plug-and plays, and with the rise of Princess and Adventurers and the fall of some others, there's a bunch to talk about on today's video. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to rank every single one. Some factions really strong in the game, holding up well. I think they're going to have even more characters come into the game to make them even better. And then there's other factions that I think their days are limited. We got a year and a half of Big Hero 6, and I think everybody is going to be a-okay if the tech faction is not relevant for a while. But we're going to have to go ahead and check out the whole video so that you guys can see it all. Again, want to serve this as really helping you guys understand all of the factions and where they're currently at, and if I think they're going to have a chance to rise and continue to be a good investment. After all, we talk about it all the time, your investments in while it's kind of quiet before these game modes hit, you want to make sure you're concentrating your farming efforts to the best possible factions that you can to help you in different game modes and within PvP. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. Alrighty, Cozy Club, well, here we go. We're going to be ranking the top 10 factions within DSA, starting at number 10 and working our way up to the top. Now, want to remind you guys that near the top of the list, the margins are razor thin. A lot of these factions, just because I'm ranking them higher than another, is not saying they can beat everything below it. There are going to be different examples, but as an overall consistent average and the overall viability of these factions is how we're going to be ranking them today. We're going to be exclusively looking at the characters within the faction and not plug and play possibilities for teams, and kind of look how they do across all different game modes. We just talked about this on my Twitch stream. If you haven't yet, go ahead and join the Twitch channel. I'll put that down in the description below. I live stream different segments and different discussions and just a ton of fun every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Let's begin the top 10 list. Here we go. Coming in at number 10. Now, 10 was the hardest because there's two factions that are not that great, but we had to include them on the list. I wanted to put them both together here at 10, so I guess this makes this list a top 11 factions. Yay for false advertising. All right, to kick off this list, it's our honorable mention, or team number 11. It's the Duck faction. Now, the Duck faction, they're not a true faction within the game, and there's not that many ducks left to complete and really make this faction a whole thing, but they do share some synergy and they can be a little bit fun to use. They're going to be our honorable mention today, coming in near at the bottom, but definitely a shout out to the synergy that both Gizmo Duck and Scrooge McDuck share together. Donald and Daisy can do some nice things, so, they're an honorable mention. They're not going to do a lot. I don't recommend going for them just because they have a low ceiling, right? Like, there's not just plethora of Duck characters left to come out, and they do have synergy. They can get the job done. However, they're just not going to hold a candle to the factions above them. So, to no surprise, the Wild faction is going to be number 10 on today's list. Definitely the faction that just feels like it's missing a core identity. You've got amazing characters within the faction itself, but they don't have a leadership that can get the cog and the machine going, and that leaves you with a bunch of great characters and no synergy to really bring them together. You've got Frank and Lily, but they're primarily adventurers. You have Elsa, but she's not going to fit in that well either as a plug and play. And then Pocahontas is what you're left for as your leadership ability. Unfortunately, Poca is more focused on heroes as a whole and not just the Wild faction, which makes him lose an identity. Hopefully we get Mufasa, maybe Winnie the Pooh, or some type of leadership to really round out this faction, because as we've seen with the adventurers, all it takes is one kind of identity, and the Wilds, they lack that. They don't have it currently, and I'm hoping that's what they need. That's the secret sauce to bump them up another level. Talking about the 9th best faction within DSA, we've got the Downtown Villains. Now, the Downtown Villains just got a huge buff via Dr. Facilier's leadership. They buffed up Dr. Facilier, made him a whole lot better, and with his Evil Deeds leadership, he is now able to give up to 18% offense and 9% potency to all of his teammates, plus an additional 3% potency. So definitely fills that kind of Ursula role, but with the Downtown Villains specifically. And that combined with some great characters, there's a lot of hope for the Downtown Villains. I think They're finally starting to find their place a little bit within the game, still ranking at the very bottom of the factions. However, you've got awesome characters like Cruella de Vil that's just so much fun to play and so much harmful effects on the field that ties into Dr. Facilier. You have people like Syndrome, and Syndrome's got the big bracelet bomb, which coincidentally, 75% chance against harmful effects. So they're this harmful effect applying, afflicting an extra damage team. Zerg and Demona are capable of some big damage numbers. Big Bad Wolf, King Candy for tanking. They have an identity, and it's starting to form. They don't have the speed that other factions have, and they have no way to catch up to that. So they're not able to get all this mass amount of damage out there. And without like an Ursula to steal that turn meter and give the advantage like the villain faction, kind of leaves them high and dry. I like them a lot. I want to keep my eye on them. Not a bad faction to invest in if you've kind of done the other ones on this list. DTV at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is going to be the Downtown Hero faction. And no, I'm not talking about just like the faction and the characters within it, because as we all know, you've got Big Hero 6 and you've got Ralph, and yes, their characters are great. We're talking about the best teams that you can form from them, excluding probably Big Hero 6. We do have a faction on our hands. Not a lot of people use it because you need a character at the moment that not a lot of people have. But Judy Hopps does supply the Downtown Hero faction with somewhat of a viable lead. Keep your eyes on Judy because at Gear 9, her ticketable offense leadership is going to get a whole lot better. Now, first and foremost, it's going to give 12% evasion to people like Glitch, Penelope that already has so much evasion on her kits. But in addition, whenever her teammates get a harmful effect, it's like the opposite of Downtown villains, Judy is going to have a chance to stun. At Gear 9, you've got a guaranteed chance to get that stun out there. Gonna come in clutch. She'll be your leadership for now. The Downtown Hero faction is one dedicated leader away for this just being off the charts crazy. I mean, you've got some of the best characters in the game with Tiana, Ralph, obviously Hero Hamada, Baymax. You've got Gadget, Glitch, Mickey Mouse, Dash. The list goes on. These are such great characters, and the faction of a whole, we're just looking at the characters. This is one of the best, but for the best possible team combinations, it will be coming in at number 8. So before we move on, I wanted to talk about those razor thin margins that I was talking about, and I'm going to kind of introduce where each margin is. So you've got the Downtown Heroes and you've got the Downtown Villains kind of in that same spot. And then these next 3 factions are all right on the cusp of being the same. The margins are super thin, so don't get too focused on their placements, but they're all pretty good factions, and there's a lot to change with them, and one character can completely change the entire faction, as we've seen from Princess and Adventurers. Next up, it is going to be the Tech faction. My gosh, the Tech faction. So many people are sick of this faction, and I think a lot of people might be relieved to see it ranked this low. Right now in the current meta, they are not even close to being the top of the leaderboard. However, I mean, we faced, what was it? 90 years might be somewhat of an overestimation, but it seemed like it with how long they dominated the meta. Big Hero 6 consistently just beat people down with super silence when they launched, and then just staying within the meta. So much so, they had to be focused down for a nerf. The Tech faction, they do have some life to it. I think Maurice brings a lot to the faction. Eve, we're only seeing the beginning of both her and Wally. We've kind of talked about this on my stream, but once they get speed pieces and once they get more going for them, Sonic Boom with Eve and Wally is going to be insane. You've got some really good characters in here, and I'm excited to see who comes out. They're all going to benefit a ton once Gear 9 comes out with just that crazy speed from Hero Hamada. And, you know, I hope that they're not the top of the leaderboard then, and I'm hoping that these other teams can counter the sheer speed that they have. But for the most part, they look pretty solid. Concerning the Tech faction, I love that it's just not only Big Hero 6 at the moment. You're starting to see some different characters kind of slot in there, but they're all about their speed, right? They're about getting the big attacks out quickly and not letting you get a turn through Fred in the tanking and Go-Go and Honey Lemon for the damage and the sustain. Really solid team. I'm going to be interested to see how they do at the next level, but for right now, they're ranked at number 7. At number 6, we've got probably the most fun faction, or way up there, and that is the Villains faction. Playing as the Disney villains is just such an iconic and powerful faction. The villains just have so much that they can put out there with harmful effects, big summonable units, and there's a lot of synergy going on all it's going to take is for maybe an additional leadership to come through. They're all about the big, heavy damage, and yes, they're not going to take a turn for a while, but once they do, they have the capability of pumping out some crazy numbers. And on top of that, there's so much creativity you can do with the villains. You've got Corella with Dr. Facilier. You have Demona and Syndrome, Zerg and Yokai. You've got Gantu and Davy Jones mixed with Ursula and the crazy crit chance that they have in big time damage. You obviously have access to the Kingdom villains, and that's kind of its own faction we'll talk about, but really, really solid, guys. The villain faction, they are definitely way up there on the list, and I see them only getting better. Definitely a safe faction to invest in because we know there's more villains coming into the game, and with last year being the, year of the villains, I think it might slow down a bit. But DSA, it seems like they really like their villains and they give them proper refreshes. So fingers crossed for like a refresh that just brings them to the top. They're going to be at number 6. At lucky number 5, we have the Oceanic faction. Now, both the villains and the Oceanics, we've made plenty of videos on how to utilize them and how to make the best teams for them. The Oceanics are awesome. They've got the capability of punching up against any other team. They have massive amount of health through Maui and his great shield leadership. Moana, we know how great she is. Ursula, awesome. Prince Eric, great survivability. Peter Pan becoming the most recent Oceanic. Once people can get their hands on the Peter Pan crew, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more Oceanic teams out there. Definitely one of those that if we get a game mode that you have faction versus faction and you have to carefully use your characters, I think this is one that people are going to start liking a lot because they have the capability of punching up. Now, the thing is, we've gone through a lot of Oceanic characters already, but we've got Finding Nemo, Pirates of the Caribbean, maybe Lilo instead of Stitch. We've got a lot more Oceanic characters that are possible to come out, so they're not slowing down anytime soon, and it's been a while. Outside of Peter Pan, I don't think we've seen a ton out there. Maybe they give a buff to Stitch or even Captain Jack Sparrow, and it might bump up the faction overall. They're all about being slow with heavy health pools, but they have passive ways to give each other turn meter, and really, they hit a ton with the Crashing Wave team. As you guys know, the Oceanic faction will be coming in at number 5. A surprise to many, I'm sure, but at number 4, we have the Mythical faction. Now, again, guys, the top 4, guys, these are all so close together. And again, so many can beat the other teams. However, right now, we've got the Mythicals at number 4, primarily having Miguel, Hercules, Hades, Pain and Panic, plus either Megara, Merlin, or some other Mythicals. Now, right now, their biggest problem is they're kind of lacking a good character pool. Outside of the main 5 or 6, there's not a ton there. However, the thing that makes them awesome is just look at the top. They don't need a lot of characters in this faction because right there, top 4 are all S-tier PvP characters, all capable of just carrying the load. One of the best leaderships in the game with the revive mechanic, little RNG dependent, but with Hades and Hercules for the damage, Pain and Panic for the control, plus any other one, very strong faction and easily one of the best in the game. They're only going to get better. When Tier 9 comes out, they could easily claim the top spot. And on top of that, we know we've got this guy just waiting to come out. And once inevitably he comes out and we see his monster of a kit, they will probably, mark this, be the best faction in the game. I would not be surprised. At the moment, with the current meta, I've got them at number 4 just because they can't quite compare with just consistency to the 3 teams above them. Really solid team. All but a few months ago was the number 1. Mythicals coming in at number 4. We have made it to the top 3 factions. And, it was really, really hard to place these top 3. There's not a lot separating them, and they're pretty much all tied. Trying to look at different game modes, I want to take in Club Conquest, Raids, and PvP all into consideration. But, Sensational 6, for example, falls into that Downtown Hero faction. They are kind of great in Club Conquest, not so much everywhere else, and so that's kind of where they're going to land. But at number 3, we've got the Princess faction. Guys, the princesses are absolutely insane. One of the best, if not the best, tower defense within Club Conquest. They're great in the raid, and they've got the capability of beating any team in PvP. We're only like a few character refreshes with maybe Ariel and then Jasmine getting buffed up, and after that, they're going to be phenomenal. I'm saying it right now. This is a faction you want to invest in. We know Snow White, Cinderella. We've got more princesses to come. They're extremely fast with Rapunzel. They hit very hard. They're a ton of fun to use, and their synergy is off the charts. Now, you do need Tiana for them to be great. So if you don't have Tiana, they're bumped way down there. They're definitely somewhere in the 7 or 8 range without Tiana. With Tiana, the secret sauce, they're definitely worth investing in. Really solid, great synergy between them. In fact, they're one of my favorite teams that share that synergy. They're coming in at number 3 simply because it was tough to put them over the 2 other ones that have a little bit of an edge up on the other game modes, and they've got teams that can really destroy the princesses if done right. To really dive deep into the princess faction, though, we've got 3 princesses left, the main ones. We've got Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty. And here's the deal. I think Cinderella is definitely going to be more of a support, and Snow White, I'm hopeful that the dwarfs are going to be with her and they're going to be able to be insane and be a great offense unit, because Merida and Mulan and a little bit of Moana, she's going to other teams, are going to be your offense characters for the team. They need a little bit more damage, but they make up with the unity and the crazy assists that they can do with one another. The Disney Princess faction, feels so good to say it, comes in at number 3. If I made this list a month ago, the Adventurers would be near the bottom, if not the 11th, honorable mention. The Ducks were probably ahead of them. But now we have got ourselves a true identity with Frank the Tank and Lily coming out. We've got ourselves the Adventurer faction coming in as the second best faction within the game that are going to slowly take over that number 1 spot if we're looking across all game modes. Now, you guys can just do the math. You know who's going to be at number 1. We'll save the conversation for that. The Adventurers are going to be that faction you want and have to invest in. Frank's leadership is all about club adventures, guys, and club adventures are going to take into consideration both the raid and then also the club dungeon, or the new game mode that we know is coming out that's involved with dungeons. That right there is going to give them huge viability. They are just insane in the raid with all the turn meter reduction through Frank and Lily and Moana with the big paddles. Moana gives them the damage that they need. Raya is just insanity with all of her crazy Warrior's Fury damage she can put out. Barley bombs, Lily, and then Gadget, who's one of the overall best characters in the game. Now, you've got 2 different teams. You've got the Frank, Lily, Moana, Raya, and Barley team that can take out just about anything, but also we've got the Rescue Rangers with Gadget, Chip, and the main 3 Adventurers to provide you a team that is pretty much unstoppable outside of a few select teams. I know this sounds crazy, but the Rescue Rangers, they're insane. They're absolutely crazy. I thought they were going to be way worse when they came out, and they finally have this kit that makes sense. Gadget is just out of this world. If she becomes free to play, she's at the top of my list of recommendations for everybody to farm. She's got amazing turn meter reduction with her IQ, and they just have insane speed. If you look at Chip's passive, having that Moana Maui effect of giving haste at the beginning of the battle, put the Rescue Rangers as one of the most difficult teams in PvP to take down. That and what they can do within the raid is what makes them so great. So you have 2 different options as the Adventurers. You can go with the main big time Barley Bomb Riot damage, or the Rescue Rangers. Across all game modes, very solid. Could be number 1, but I had to give the edge to the number 1 team because of the sheer craziness and just overall viability and options that they provide. So that leaves the number 1 faction right now within Disney Sorcerer's Arena to be the Kingdom faction. Guys, there are so many choices. It's like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet. You can choose anything you like on the menu, put them together, and you've got a pretty solid team. So many choices, such a great leadership to combine it all together. With great speed and different flexibility options, the Kingdom faction is the most consistent in my opinion throughout the metas. Meta after meta, Shan Yu and his gang of Kingdom members, doesn't matter who it is, continue to dominate. The crazy thing is, we talked about this when I first started content creation, that so many characters would fall under the Kingdom umbrella because it's Kingdom, it's Disney, they kind of all fall under together. But you have people like Rapunzel in the Princess faction. You have Beast and Belle, Esmeralda, one of the best characters in the game, Claude Furlow and the Kingdom villains, one of the most dangerous PvP characters in the game, and you've got Maleficent around the corner that's going to amp them up to a whole nother level. They simply just provide so much speed. They have so much going for them with Namari and the instant passive kills. You have Belle calling for crazy assist, Esmeralda to help out in the raids, and the crazy thing is the characters are going to be available mainly for both free-to-play and pay-to-play, and they consistently are amazing throughout the game, giving you so many different options across so many different game modes. Shan Yu is the glue that holds them together, both Kingdom villains and regular Kingdom alike. Hoping we get a Kingdom hero to really, make their own team so we can separate the villains from the heroes. But right now, we need Shan Yu to kind of tie in all of them together with that speed lead. They're only going to get better with Gear 9, and man, I'm excited to see where it goes because Maleficent is going to skyrocket them. They're definitely the safest faction at the moment to invest in. As you know, so many more characters are going to fall under this umbrella. Overall, Kingdom is going to come in at number 1. It's a very close, and you could maybe swap a couple of these, but they're just the most consistent. They have the biggest roster, and they have the brightest future across all game modes. That is why we have ranked Kingdom at the number 1 spot. Alrighty, Cozy Club, so that was all of the factions within the game, and there's a lot that's going to change in the months ahead. I primarily wanted to make this video to kind of help you guys out of where things stand within the meta and the state of the game of DSA, talking about each faction's identity and what they do best, and are they going to be great within the long haul. So that is going to be our top 10 with 11 being Ducks list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the ranking. Let me know down below, what is your favorite faction? And tell me, defend your faction. Why is yours so amazing? Defend those Oceanics. Talk about the downtown villains and what you want to see. This is going to be the top 10 list. We're going to try to do this every so often so that you guys have a good grasp at what the state of the game is. I want to thank you guys again for dropping by today's video. You guys have been such a great community to share this content with, and if you guys want to support the channel, go ahead and subscribe, like today's video, and down below here, we've got a merch store that has all the cozy swag. I've never shouted out the merch store, but we do have a cozy merch store for those that want to get in on the hype. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and until next time, stay cozy.